My name is Sarah Weinman. I am the crime fiction columnist for the Los Angeles Times. It's a monthly online column called Dark Passages. I also maintain a blog called Confessions of an Idiosyncratic Mind, which you can find at www.sarahweinman.com. And welcome to what BookExpo America has dubbed the Mystery Panel. We'll get into a little bit as to why this is applicable and why that's not in a little bit. But first, let me introduce my panelists. Over on this side is Colin Harrison. He is, and forgive me if I get your title wrong, an executive editor and vice president at Scribner. But he also has written several novels, including The Finder, which was nominated for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize in the mystery thriller category, and upcoming in October, coming up from Picador, is Risk.
I think that crime is part of everything we are. It's part of the society we live in. It's part of what's going on constantly. If you're writing about crime, you're writing about society. And if you're writing about society, you should probably be writing about crime.
So let's sort of take that into the next level, which is why write about society right now? And why in particular did you choose New York as its prism? Is it because you live in the city? What is it that keeps attracting you to New York time and time again?
Well, New York is a fabulous place for a writer to live because there's so much material coming to him or to her at any time. I love writing about New York. The city's changing constantly. From one book to the next, the city is a different place, and I find it very challenging just to try to get my arms around the city at any moment. So, and think of the crimes that have taken place here in the last couple of years. It's fantastic.
Any in particular that you're fond of?
Well, the swindles, the murders. Our governor, the crime didn't take place in Washington, but part of it played out in New York City. And so it's a big stage. There are big personalities. There are big fates. For a writer looking for stories, this is a great place to be. The story is motivated by a woman named Mrs. Corbett who requests that the narrator discover the circumstances under which her son has died, and she is herself dying, and at this point in her life she wants to know things so that she can leave her life with some measure of peace. I thought that was a pretty compelling motivation for her. She's worldly, she's wealthy, she's seen it all. She's lost a son, she's lost a husband, she's tough, she knows death is coming, she's not messing around anymore, she wants to find out what happened, and the narrator's the guy who's going to do it. At the other end of the spectrum, though, there's a Czechoslovakian hand model who is in this book, and she is frankly just as fascinating to me as Mrs. Corbett, and 50 years younger.
So is it a question of just because of the different ages and the like that you would write about them in a completely different context, or?
Well, the narrator has to, in order to solve Mrs. Corbett's problem, he has to solve the young Czech hand model's problem, and they're very different problems. And both women have ways of going about things and getting the things they need. And our narrator, who's not, he's not an inconsiderable person, has to take into account each of the two women. Well, Risk was initially a 15-part serial in the New York Times Sunday magazine, and it was written under great pressure, which was fun. But when I took those 15 chapters and looked at them and thought, could this be a novel, a short novel, a lot had to change. And first of all, I had to pull out some of the repetition. In a serial, you have to reload the story every week. I had to comb that out. I actually chopped where the chapters fell a little bit differently and made a lot of, I think, improvements. But to go to your question about the zeitgeist, there's a lot of risk out there. We're living in a time of risk, and we've been reminded that we are living in a time of risk. And I don't mind opening my psychic pores and letting that stuff come in and trying to get it down on paper. And so the book Risk involves psychic risk, sexual risk, monetary risk, criminal risk, familial risk, and I tried to sort of wrap it all together in a quick moving story that would be entertaining.
That it certainly is.
Readers should remember that they're not just reading a book, and they're not just communing with the fetish item called a book. They're actually ingesting the writer's performance. And writers have often taken, well, you said you wrote his 400-page outline. Writers are kind of crazy people when you get right down to it. But the craziness is channeled into the making of a performance for you, the reader. And I would hope that the culture would cherish the performance aspect that a novelist is able to create for other people.